I think as gamers, at least at one point in time, most of us have relished the idea of actually being in our favorite game world. Pulling out the Sword of Time in Zelda, casting signs in Witcher 3, throwing down a bubble shield as Master Chief or Winston if you're an Overwatch player, but really, you get the point. While first-person shooters can do a great job of letting us see through the eyes of our favorite hero, we know there's a wall right behind the TV, and we're just sitting on a couch. In comes virtual reality. Stay tuned. Welcome back to GamerMeld. VR. A fevered dream of every sci-fi fan out there. The holodeck of today. Massive companies have invested billions into the dream that is virtual reality. It's all anyone talked about for a good year, it seemed, but lately, the hype has fizzled quite a bit. When we look at sales, oh wait, we can't, because neither Facebook or HTC have released those numbers. Sony have sold 1 million units, but according to the Wall Street Journal, even they're looking at going to commercial venues after slower than expected adoption. Then the fact that Oculus decided to not show up at E3 this year, and Facebook surprisingly shut down their Story Studio for narrative-driven VR content. Many will point to the Gartner life cycle of hype, where the drop-off in sales was expected, but I do think other factors are involved. So what happened? And will VR ever truly be mainstream in gaming? To answer that, I'm going to have to discuss some of the hurdles VR faces, and the way I see it, there are 3 main ones. The first is pretty simple. Movement. It's something a lot of people don't think about, but no matter how many times you move your head, it's not going to feel like the real thing while you're pushing a joystick to move your character forward. Sure, the Vive has done great with offering room scale movement, but you can see the limitations with the mostly on-rails style games that they have. They're still very stationary, which they have to be, given you can only walk around a small room. To top it off, you've got to make space by moving furniture around, or simply having an area dedicated strictly to the Vive, which isn't exactly ideal. Some things have been attempted, like the Omni, which is, as the name implies, an omnidirectional or 360 treadmill. The issue there is still space, and it's quite expensive and bulky. Then there's a completely different side to that movement coin. If it could be done, if we could somehow figure out how to run in place and completely move without having to make entire spaces dedicated to it, you actually have to be in shape. It's not just pushing your thumb a little bit. Imagine all the running in Skyrim, that's hard. Especially if you're like me and not exactly in the best shape of your life. With that said, it could garner a whole new level of esports. I know many will point to some of the fast travel done on the Vive, but you do need to be able to walk more than a couple steps before being forced to do it. The second major issue is the massive financial problem, or problems should I say, because there are a few. Simply put, this technology is pretty bleeding edge. To get the level of detail you need without major screen door effect issues, you've got to have a decent resolution screen. These screens don't come cheap. Then the sensor technology, and figuring out the different technical problems like movement I discussed earlier. It costs a lot. This means the headsets are expensive. I mean, even the PSVR, which isn't the most technically advanced headset, costs as much as the system itself. That's hard to sell. Then comes the costly issue of making the actual games, and this is a huge one. Simply put, modern games cost a lot. I mean a lot. It takes teams of developers years and costs publishers $10 to even hundreds of millions of dollars to create some of the sprawling games we see today. The reason they're able to do this and sell a game as low as $60 is because of the large number of players expected to buy it. Sometimes that doesn't work though, and AAA games are getting far more expensive and harder to produce. Now take something like VR, which barely has a fraction of the amount of users on any given system, and you can see why it would be extremely risky to develop for. Add on top of that VR is a whole new medium in development, and best practices and how to do certain things still haven't fully been fleshed out. Really, I'd argue that if some AAA games made a game specific for VR and every single VR owner purchased it, there's a chance they still wouldn't make a profit. That's why games on VR are very expensive for what you get. There simply isn't a high enough user base yet, but here lies our catch-22. Gamers won't come until there's better games, and more of a reason to come. And developers won't develop good games until there's more users to sell to. See, games had to work their way up to this multi-billion-dollar industry, but now we expect these huge games with tons of details, even in a new medium like VR. So either developers will have to bite the bullet, which most won't because it's pretty much just throwing money away, or gamers will have to fork out getting the headsets with the hopes of good games along the way, which is a tough sell because these headsets, like I said, aren't cheap. The third and final problem is the marketing. How on earth do you market VR? Sure, it sounds awesome, but until you actually try it, you can't know how amazing it is. Plus, the way a huge headset looks to the consumer is just tacky. It's not an easy sell. To top it all off, you have to have a great PC to play it. And the mobile versions simply aren't that great thanks to the much lower spec processors. Basically, will VR ever go mainstream? Possibly, but I don't think so anytime soon. Sure, Oculus is helping with the wireless and pricing side of things with their newest Oculus Go, but I really think there's still a ton more that has to be done to pull people on. When that'll happen, I'm not sure, but there's one thing that does seem to be certain. It won't be easy. So while that does it for today, what do you think about VR? Am I way off, or will it be a long time before companies see any return on investment? Let me know down in the comments below. And definitely don't forget to thumbs up the video if you liked it. That does it for now. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking on the round icon in the middle. You can check out the most recent video and suggest a video to the left. Thanks so much for coming, and as always, have a great day.